What's going on, my people? Welcome back to another episode of the Stop the Count podcast. In this episode, I will be talking about the upcoming UFC Fight Night and the boxing schedule, as well as Chivas' next game versus Necaxa and the Seleccion Mexicana's next game versus Jamaica. First, I'll start off by talking about the UFC Fight Night. This is not the best fight card, but not all of the cards could be great. It's headlined by hollyholm versus buenosilva. I'll start off by talking about some good prospects and fights on the card. The first fight, tysonnam versus azmatmaksum. I'm not too familiar with Azmat, but an undefeated flyweight fighting is a fight I'm not gonna miss. Another great fight would be nazimsadykhov versus terrancemckinney. This is going to be an absolute banger. It's a must-watch fight, in my opinion. It's not going the distance, guaranteed. Another great fight is ottmanazaitar versus franciscoprado. They are both coming off of their first losses of their careers, so they're going to want to come out and make a statement. And just recently put on the card, probably the best fighter on the card, jackdellamaddalena, will be fighting bassilhafez. I'm not going to say much about this fight, and I'm just going to hope this fight goes through for Jack. Now, for the main event, hollyholm versus buenosilva. In all honesty, I'm not very excited about this fight, and I don't really care for it. I won't be breaking it down, and if I were to pick a winner, I would believe that buenosilva would win. For the boxing fights, starting with the Matchroom boxing card, it's headlined by alyciabaumgardner versus christinalinardatou for Alicia's undisputed championship belts. There's many great prospects on this card, but Tony mentioned a few. I'll start off by mentioning marccastro. He's a very good raw fighter. This is going to be his first 10-round fight, so we'll just have to wait and see how he does if he gets into the later rounds. The next fighter is someone who hasn't even made his pro debut yet, and that is Cuban Olympic gold medalist andycruz. Andy defeated keyshawndavis in the Olympics for the gold medal, and in his pro debut, he will be fighting in a 10-round fight. Andy will be facing a very tough opponent in Juan Carlos Burgos, who is a very, very tough fighter. He has a record of 35 wins, 7 losses, and 3 draws. In his 7 losses, he has never been knocked out, even after facing some very notable names in boxing. His last fight, he went 8 rounds with the previously mentioned keyshawndavis, and he did lose a decision. This will be a very good fight, as Andy has been thrown straight into the fire by Matchroom, and he will be fighting a tough opponent in a 10-round fight for his pro debut. We'll have to wait and see how he performs in this fight. I believe Andy will look pretty much dominant in this fight, winning convincingly, but a knockout might be a little bit of a reach. Now for the main event, alyciabaumgardner versus christinalinardatou for alyciabaumgardner's undisputed championship belts. These two have already fought once, and Christina was the one who came out victorious by split decision, handing Alycia her first and only loss of her professional career. Christina was supposed to fight Michaela Mayer in April, but was not allowed to, as the British Boxing Commission was concerned with Christina having a permanent lens in her eye, even though they licensed her a couple years ago for a fight with Katie Taylor. Again, like the UFC main event, I'm not interested in this fight. I won't be breaking it down, but I do think alyciabaumgardner will be able to come out victorious and avenge her lone loss. Now, for the Showtime card, headlined by frankmartin versus artemharutyunyan, a pair of unbeaten lightweight contenders looking to make a statement. Also on the card is nonitodonaire versus alexandrosantiago for the vacant WBC bantamweight titles. The title was vacated by Naoya Inoue as he moves up in search of becoming a 4-division world champion. I won't be talking about any prospects on the card, but I will be getting straight into the co-main event. That is nonitodonaire versus alexandrosantiago for the vacant WBC bantamweight strap. I won't be breaking it down, but just to talk a little bit about it, Nonito is truly one of the forgotten stars of boxing. There's very few people that could fight like him. A once pound-for-pound number 1, he's obviously been on the decline with his age. His last fight was a knockout to the previously mentioned Naoya Inoue after giving Inoue a good first fight, but still lost that one by decision as well. And for Alexandrosantiago, He's been in some extremely close fights with very tough opponents, most notably Gary Antonio Russell and Jerwin Encajas. Santiago doesn't have the best record, but don't let it fool you. He's a dog. And for who I have winning this fight, I believe Alexandrosantiago will be able to pull off the upset. It doesn't have much to do with skill, but with Father Time catching up to nonitodonaire. I might be wrong and I might have gone too far ahead of myself, but that's what I see happening. For the main event, up-and-coming lightweight contender Frankmartin versus fellow unbeaten artemharutyunyan. Frank is a little on the older side for a prospect as he is already 28 years old, and he didn't make his pro debut until he was 22. And like I said before, he is also fighting a fellow unbeaten opponent. To keep this short and simple, Frank is a beast, and I'm expecting another dominant performance. More than likely a shutout boxing display, but Artem, like any fighter, has a chance. Is it a big chance? In my opinion, no. Now for the Seleccion Mexicana versus Jamaica. What a tough game this will be. It's going to be extremely close and hard fought. Jamaica are very strong and quick, which is something that Mexico is weak against, especially on the wings. Although Mexico have a positive win differential over Jamaica, one thing is winning comfortably and another thing is winning on the edge of your seat. Now it's almost a certain that Jimmy will play a 4-3-3 formation. For one change I would like to see him make is sitting Urielantuna out of this game. It's going to be a game fought hard at the wing, and in the previous matches he's shown to be a major liability. Take the Honduras game for example. Albert Ellis had his way with him and Jorge Sanchez. Who would I start instead of him? I would give Piojoalvarado the nod. He was in great form to end the season with Chivas and just seems to be a big game player. For how I see this game ending, I see this being extremely close, well fought, and I see Mexico winning in penalties after the game ends in a 1-1 draw. For Chivas' next game versus Necaxa. Chivas have not lost to Necaxa since 2019 before the Chivas Malandras de Ricardo Peláez, and they are currently on a 5-match win streak over that same span. The last game played against each other, Chivas won 1-0 in a very well evenly contested game where Pavel Perez scored the winner after coming off the bench. Necaxa have not won this torneo, only being able to come up with 2 draws, one against Toluca and another against Tijuana. This is another game in which I think Pauno will play a 5-2-3 formation with a third central defender creeping into the midfield into a more defensive midfielder role. Pauno wasn't able to experiment with this formation last game due to the early red card, but I'm pretty sure he will be experimenting with it in this game Thursday. I'm not too sure we'll be able to see Guti's debut with Chivas, but the League Cup is coming up and that's the best time for him to get rhythm and start to mesh with his new teammates on the field. And let's face it, nobody cares about the League Cup. As for how I see this game playing out, I believe it will be a very close, well-played defensive game, but Chivas will pull off the 1-0 win. That's it for this video. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Also follow me on Twitter at StopTheCount10. See you next week as I talk about what happened in these events. See you then.